Ladies, welcome to Halloween Daily, where every day is Halloween. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Happy
Thank you
Halloween.
for having us. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I watched New Life last night, and I really enjoyed the film. I think you both did a great job, and these roles that you're both playing are I imagine, were pretty challenging. And I wanted to know what initially attracted you to these characters that you play in the film.
I really enjoyed the script. The first time I read it, I just thought it was such an interesting and fresh take on, not just genre, but the combination of genre and the combination of characters and the combination. It was such a fresh new thing that it really excited me. And I loved the fact that Jess is a woman of few words, that so much is left up to the imagination, and that I was given the creative freedom then to really develop a character that said a lot with her eyes, more with her eyes than with her mouth.
Yeah, I always think it's just such a treat to play a woman who you can describe without any reference to a man. So she's nobody's wife, she's nobody's girlfriend, she's not secretary to anybody, she's not, and they're few and far between those roles. They really are. I can't tell you how many press junkets I've done where I've had to begin with, yeah, well, she's the wife of the, and I'm not going to say it's a line that I've drawn, but I am very, very grateful anytime that's not not what's happening. That's the least of what was interesting about this, but it is worth commenting on that. John wrote a movie where two women fill the screen all the time, and with no apology or explanation or anything required for it. I think in another time, and really not that long ago, uh, Jess would have been chased by a man, and this would have been a different movie. And I think it's really interesting to watch two very strong women deal with vulnerability and how they're going to live with these new vulnerabilities in their different ways.
Yeah, each of them experiencing a new life in different ways. And I love that too. That it really is, you guys, for the most part. I mean, you guys are on screen for the whole thing. Unfortunately, not a whole lot together. But you both, separately, throughout most of the film, are carrying on pretty much every scene. And it is a really well written film. I was impressed that this is John's first feature film. Can you talk a little bit about that? About just working with a first-time feature film director. He wrote it and directed it, and I thought it came together really well for a first-time director, for sure.
Yeah, I think he was, I think it's very reassuring to work with a writer director. There's so much authority there. It's not always the case. And I think it's particularly for a film like this, it was sort of essential, really. I think he's got a huge lexicon that he's drawing on. John, he's a real film buff and not just genre. In fact, not really genre. Like his the world that he's consumed in terms of movies is vast, and makes it, when we very, very first had a conversation in the early days where I was sort of wanting just to talk about it without having committed to it yet, I was so impressed by the lexicon that he was drawing on and the references that he was making. I found that very reassuring. I don't come from genre; it's not really my thing, and so I think I'd have been more put off by somebody who dazzled me with a lot of horror films as his references, and he really didn't. He had a palette that he wanted to paint with. We talked about books, which is my sweet spot. So I felt very reassured that even if I didn't have a body of work of John's that I could look at, there was a body of work that he was referencing that felt very solid and very apt, because it can be easy to talk about Picasso and hand in, a coloring in sheet. But I felt like he was drawing on references that he could actually use.
Yeah, and on the flip side, just who John is as well. When I met with him the first time, I had a great conversation with him that lasted for ages, and it was so collaborative. And not only was he so had such a strong vision, but I just loved how interested he was in my vision as well. And we just got along really well. So it was an exciting prospect working with someone who had such a collaborative sort of sense about him, which I don't know much, but I don't feel like that's always the case.
That is cool that he welcomes that and was so collaborative. And I was also curious, did either of you do any research ahead of time to prep for these roles?
Yeah, I play someone with ALS, so it was very important to me and to John to get that absolutely right in as respectful a way as I possibly could. And I was very clear with John that I was going to need help, with that. And he had a friend, Lisa Cross, who is actually in the movie as well. She plays the character when Elsa has a scene on a Zoom with an ALS sufferer and her carer. Yeah. That is Lisa on the other end of that.
Very cool.
And Lisa was incredible and generous and luminous and funny and intimate, and immediately nuts and bolts about, like, this is how it is. This is how the degeneration happens. This is how your hand works. This is how she made me get up and like show her my sort of limp, and was like, no, it needs to be more like this. It was amazing and generous and selfless and wonderful of her, and all done with a smile and nothing but humor. So yeah, that was crucial, absolutely crucial. And I spent quite a lot of time getting that right before, long before we started shooting.
And it goes without saying as well, her performance in the film is incredible. I haven't even mentioned that, but she just blew me away. It's such a powerful, powerful moment. I haven't mentioned that, but it was incredible. And as far as research goes, I feel like mine was more just preparation. I don't feel like I had to do much research into the world, or I feel like I drew mostly from my own experience, or from just a creative creation of the character, rather than feeling that it was coming from any huge references. I'm trying to think if there were big references that I used, but it was more just preparation rather than research.
And the film, one of my favorite things about it, it is very layered. And even with the horror and the scares, there's the scares of a possibly apocalyptic global pandemic that is involved in the film. But then there's also this technology aspect that I really like that John shows, of how they're chasing Jessica and locating her. And I found that very scary too. And I asked John this question, so I'll ask each of you: what's scarier to you, the technology aspect or the virus aspect?
The technology aspect feels like that genie is so out the bottle. That to me just feels like it's a given. That guy, oh, they know where I am. Yeah, of course they know where I am. I have a phone. Of course, yeah. Everyone knows where I am. So that didn't feel. It felt like it was brilliantly used, and more importantly, brilliantly depicted in the film. I felt like his use of showing us tech while not over glamorizing it, also on a very limited budget. I felt like that was just really deftly handled by John. But no, I'd be more frightened of that virus than I am of the tech, no question.
Same. She said.
And this is a heavy movie. It deals with a lot of just emotional material. When the camera stopped, though, or during, what is, for each of you, your favorite memory from the set?
God, I just remember being cold all the time. That's really all I remember. I just remember, John would attest to this, I remember just the camera stopping rolling and me just yelling for a blanket. Please, someone bring me a blanket. I mean, I have lots of favorite memories. It was just a fun and really efficient shoot. And while that word doesn't sound particularly sort of glamorous, it really, really means a lot as someone who's done this for years and years and years, to be around people who are utter pros, all of them, and just know what they're doing, and no one's late, no one's running late. It doesn't bleed into sort of massive overtime. You're not dropping shots, you're not dropping scenes. That feeling of efficiency really is priceless. It means that you can trust the sort of container that you're in and therefore have a good time. But some part of me is a producer in my brain. So some part of me is just, if I feel this isn't running smoothly, there is a part of my brain that isn't participating in the scene because I'm already being like, well, you're not going to get the next 3 shots. So how are we going to get around it? How are you going to cut in so that you don't need these 3 shots? And that's just comes from years and years of doing this, you know, and to be able to dismantle that whole part of my brain and just participate in every scene. That's why it's worth sort of unpacking the word efficient, because it actually means it carries huge weight for me as someone who's done this for a bit.
Yeah, and my answer would be, it actually was less what was off screen, but more so while the cameras were rolling. I just really enjoyed getting into all the stunts. I had a really, really enjoyable experience, and I felt so honored that I was trusted with the task. And I'm so proud of how it all turned out. So that for me was a little bit on camera, a little bit off camera. But yeah, the choreography of the fight sequences, all of that was a new challenge for me. And I just couldn't have had it more fun.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, for our last couple minutes, if you'll indulge us, as you can see, every day's Halloween for us. It's always on the brain. So I'm curious for each of you, do you celebrate Halloween? Growing up, do you have memories of celebrating Halloween? What's your relationship to the holiday for each of you?
Mine has had to develop, because in England it's really not what it is in America, or certainly isn't when I was, you know, I was growing up in born in the 70s, growing up in the 80s. It was something that the kids did and that you rapidly outgrew. So when I came to America and was like, I'm sorry, you're doing what now? What's happening? You fully grown adult, and why are you a sexy nurse? Because it's what? I couldn't quite get my head around it. I really couldn't. I now have kids of my own who are 9 and 11. We start talking about Halloween in about February, and they start planning the costumes, and it's deeply elaborate. And every year the same thing happens, though. I've spent so much time getting them ready that I'm suddenly like, oh shit, I guess I'm a tennis coach. I don't know. And I like put on a tennis racket and put some fangs on. Or I cheated one year because I just finished playing an astronaut on the last show that I did. And so I got to keep the flight suit. So I went as an NASA astronaut. That was my best one.
I was a NASA astronaut last year as well, but I got mine from Party City.
Sorry. I win.
Way less cool. Yeah, it's so much fun. I love Halloween. I love the costumes. I love the candy. I love everything about it. And now that I have kids of my own, it's a really, really exciting thing. They lost their minds this past year. I don't even know if they'd ever had candy before. And the idea of going up to strangers' houses, like, it just blew their minds. They couldn't understand it. But they loved it. And so now I'm just really looking forward to it. I'm starting to think about my costume now. Nice family costume. I'm feeling maybe the Parent Trap because they're twins. I don't know.
Oh, that'll be cool. Yeah, that'll be good.
I just can't decide if I want to be like the beautiful English mother or if I want to be the bitchy stepmom. I don't know.
Awesome. Awesome. I'll be looking for those Instagram posts of that Halloween costume. And because that's going to be our last question we always ask. And Sonya, you already named yours, but your favorite Halloween costume and also your favorite Halloween candy.
My favorite Halloween costume was years ago, and I bought a long black dress and a million dolls of all different colors and nationalities and just sewed them onto the dress, and long black wig, and I went as Angelina Jolie and all her children, which I was really, really quite pleased with. Favorite Halloween candy? Oh man, I mean, nobody gives these out, but a dark chocolate Kit Kat is my jam.
I love it.
That sounds good. My favorite Halloween candy, either maybe Three Musketeers, actually. They're classic, simple, really like them. And my favorite costume, I had cut a very short fringe that did not suit me, and I was really upset about it. But the one thing that made it all okay was that I colored it in orange and I dressed up as Lilu from The Fifth Element for Halloween.
Oh, so
And
good.
so yeah, it salvaged the haircut. Like, it made the whole thing worth it. So that was my favorite for sure.
That's great.
Oh, that's awesome. Those are some great ones. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you both again so much for talking to us today. The movie's great. Both of you did a great job in it. And every day's Halloween. So instead of saying goodbye, we always hate to say goodbye. Instead, I just always say Happy Halloween.
Awesome. Happy Halloween.
Halloween to you.